Hello, everybody. How's it going? I want to welcome you to the Stump Seth session every Wednesday. It also includes live Q&A. And today, we have a special guest. You guys have probably seen him before. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos or his, you know who he is. This is the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Rogers.
Thanks for having me, Seth. Excited to be here.
Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. And you are currently in London, correct?
Yes, well, just outside of London.
Okay, so Dan is on one side of the world, I'm on the other, but together from both sides of the world, we're going to cover the whole world, and we're going to share everything we can to help you guys succeed on Amazon. There's one thing I have to do really quick, just so you guys are aware. I have to take care of one thing. So I want to thank Brett, one of our members. He signed up and he sent me this, and I promised him if he joins our membership, I will drink from the Aggie Cup. So hopefully all of my UT friends do not look at this moment as a moment of disgrace, but I drank from the Aggie Cup as promised. It was sitting on my desk this morning, and so I went ahead and did it. So there you go. That is in honor of you, Brett. And thank you for being a Just When I'm member. And this is how I am I'm drinking from your cup. Now, don't get angry if over the next few weeks you see me holding up the Longhorn cup and holding it very tight. I did it, Eric. I'm sorry, man. Eric's here in Austin. He understands completely. This is definitely not a burnt orange, as the Austinites would so prefer. Okay, well, Dan, question of the day. Are you ready for it, brother?
Yes.
Okay, here's the question. What do you see being the most common mistakes Amazon sellers make?
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's a good question. I want to actually preface this a little bit just so the viewers know where I'm speaking from, a bit about my experience with this. But working with Just One Dime, I've coached one-on-one quite a lot of members, somewhere in the region between probably 600 to 1,000 one-on-one sessions. And through that, I've got a lot of experience with people coming towards this business from different places, whether it's like from Jamaica or China or, Australia, UK, US. And they all have different objectives as well and employ different strategies to, overcome those issues. So overall, though, there's been one thing that I've noticed has caused the most mistakes or caused the most problems down the line. And a lot of the times, actually, like the cause effect, you might implement something today or take a wrong step today and only see adverse consequences after, say, 2-3 months. So the biggest thing, though, has definitely been short-term mindset. And that it shows itself in different ways. I do want to give more tactical examples so people know, exactly what to look for as they build their businesses. But at strategic level, that's what it would be, short-term mindset. And then you see this filter into a couple areas at more like tactical level. I'll give you a few examples. One, probably the biggest one, is not building the product out correctly from the beginning. So, and what I mean by this is when you send inventory to the warehouse, once it's in there, and Seth, you'll know this well, once it's in there, it's in there. It's quite tough to make changes. You can place removal orders, etc., but it costs you in time, money, etc. So building it out correctly, very important. And I notice a lot of members who come to Just One Dime, once they're in the membership, they want to employ certain strategies, things like product inserts, things like upselling, things like offering more value and, surprising customers, which is a big thing we teach, customer delight. But once your inventory is in the warehouse, that's tougher to do. You can't just, plan and design that in. So that would be key. Whenever you're designing your product, whatever you're busy with now, think about that. You have your product with a few levels, core benefit. So if you were doing, say, a flashlight, probably the most competitive area in Amazon, but say a flashlight, you'd have your core benefit, which is, say, to have light in the dark at nighttime in a dark room. But around that, you have an actual product, the next layer of the onion, and that is features, benefits. Does your flashlight come with a belt strap, or one of those tactical heads to break a window if you're in some situation like that? How have you differentiated your actual product? And then augmented product is the last layer. And that is the layer encompassing warranties or additional services. It could be things like after sale service, your follow-up emails, all of that. So you can see how it's all packaged in one. And if you don't do those other things, once the inventory's in, it's much harder to do. So that would be key. And secondly, not doing inspections. I was watching an interview yesterday, and this businessman had lived in China, and he said it's unbelievable how Westerners don't understand the sort of cultural differences and things that happen in China. And I love working with Chinese suppliers, one of my favorite parts of the business. I'm not trying to downplay them at all, but there's certain things that are culturally different. So he was speaking about sometimes a Westerner will be sourcing, and when they go to China, what will happen is the individual they've been speaking with will actually hire out a factory for a day and put their signs on the factory and present this front. So it's things like that. And it might not end up being poor quality product, but it might. And so inspections are key. That's very important, especially on first orders. Set that precedent. Even if you don't do inspections on order 3 and 4, set the precedent. That way your orders going forward, the product quality control should be much higher. And what you actually receive is matching to the sample quality, things like that. So inspections, huge. I know it's a bit extra cost, a bit of extra time, but do that on first orders. And lastly would be incentivizing reviews. Also short term, in terms of I want to get reviews quickly, and you go outside of TOS to do that, or you do that in a way that's not sustainable. Big one. And this is something Seth and I worked on at length in designing the new course as well. A lot of very, very organic strategies. Rather have a long-term mindset on that. I think a lot like sort of the tortoise and hare race. You want to be the tortoise. You want to be organic. Build in organic ways to get reviews. And that would be a very big one. Personally, I've had a listing lose all its reviews and lose the ability to even get reviews, which is a difficult place to be. So on that front as well, keep it organic, rather go slower. Those who cheat the system, generally what's going to happen is they're going to have those reviews removed. And at that time, you're ahead of the market. So that would be the third sort of tactical level that explains sort of short-term mindset at that strategic level. But definitely by far the biggest mistake that Amazon sellers make.
This is really good. And what's interesting, you guys, is when Dan proposed this question, this is Dan's pick, and I love the question. I could not agree more that this is the number one biggest mistakes Amazon sellers make. Like, I couldn't have picked a better answer than really short-term thinking instead of long-term thinking. And what I love about your answer, Dan, is not only did you give practical ways to apply, such as product inspection, such as planning out your launch so that you can put in a product insert instead of having to do a removal order and add it in later, which is super difficult. What I love about what you said is it applies to every level of your business. So for those of you guys who are saying, well, Seth, Dan, I understand you guys are doing really well on Amazon. You're making a lot of money, and I want to do that too. So tell me the steps I need to take so I can make a lot of money. That's a fair question. But my question in response to that, to you as an Amazon seller or a new Amazon seller, is, are you willing to do stuff today that your future self will say, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. In other words, you're building a business. It's like, my favorite illustration of this, Dan, is if I go down into the garage, or let's say a basement in my house, and in there is this machine, and it's this supersonic, amazing, advanced, amazing machine. And what it does is it makes me money. it makes money. But in order for that machine to work, I have to do stuff for it today and invest in it today before it will make me money. An even better illustration would be a tree. If there is a tree that I plant, I have to fertilize, I have to water it, I have to give it sunlight, and it's not going to grow me apples tomorrow. But at some point, it's going to be growing me more apples and more fruit than time I need to keep it going. In other words, I don't need to spend a ton of time. Once it's established, it continues to make money. And the products that make us the most money on Amazon today are ones we launched the furthest ago. Because the more established they became, the more they ranked, they now have a ton of organic ranking. I have to do very little to keep that going. Then every time we launch a new product, it requires a lot more time, a lot more money, a lot more investment and pre-planning in order to get to a point where it begins to really churn into what is called passive income. And so I hope this is super helpful to you guys as you go through this. Is there anything on that you want to add, Dan, before we move on and start taking some questions?
Nope, that sums it up. That would be the biggest thing by far.
Okay, awesome. Guys, these are some great questions. We're going to answer them for you. As you guys know, this is also a Stump Seth and or Dan session. So if you do ask a question, and I have to be the final judge of it, that truly is an Amazon question and it stumps me and it stumps Dan, we send you a free iPad. We did it 2 weeks ago. We'll do it again. The follower on here received an iPad a few days ago. You should hopefully see a video on it very soon where he talks about it. We're trying to get him to do that so you can see. But that is our promise to you. So ask us questions. But even more importantly, ask us a question that helps you get to the next step of your Amazon business. And if you guys didn't see it yet, go back and watch the video on trade war, Trump, tariff, all of that stuff. I did a 38-minute video. You've got to watch it, you guys. It has some really key information. It's the last video that went live on YouTube yesterday. There people were asking like a billion questions. I think it has like 52 comments on it in under 24 hours. Watch the video. It'll help you as you build your Amazon store, especially when it comes to shipping. Okay, let me grab the questions, Dan, and we'll just go through them together. Almost there, just scrolling up. Great to see everybody, by the way. Great to see you guys. Okay, the first question I see is from Vats Droof. We changed the main image of one of our ASINs, and our conversion went up from 12% to 28%. Now we get organic sales only. People click on our ads, but every sale is organic. Should I turn the ads off? Dan, do you want to take a tackle at this one first?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, if you think about how you shop on Amazon, I think that's a good place to start. Sometimes, at least I do notice this, and I would love to hear from you, Seth. But if I see an offering and one is sponsored and one is the offering not sponsored, I always go for the non-sponsored one. Why? I don't know. That this must be just, customer psychology, but that is maybe part of why you're seeing that play out, where organic sales are happening more than sponsored ad sales. So in this case, if you're seeing that many organic sales, it could be it's time to at least optimize ads, reduce ad spend for sure, and then you can start thinking about stopping PPC. But what I would say is don't just completely stop those campaigns. I would lower the bids on those campaigns just to ensure you keep your sort of keyword ranking and indexing that you've achieved through those campaigns. So I would rather lower them than outright stop them.
100% agreed. I totally agreed with you. And here's one of the reasons, guys. When you go to Amazon, if you see a picture of this cup, Austinite friends, don't reject me. If you see a picture of this mug and you see it in 2 places on the first page of search results instead of 1, the chances of you buying it are more than double. I think part of it is I know it costs the money if I click on it, so I don't want to do it because I know I hate that. Part of it is it just feels more genuine somehow when it's not sponsored. But it has been proven also that the more places you're filling, in other words, if you're filling 3 spots sponsored, 3 spots organic because you have variations, child ASINs, the sales conversion doesn't just double, it more than doubles. This is why I could almost guarantee you, Vats, if you turn off your ads, your sales will more than 50% drop. I can almost guarantee you. And the reason for that is when people see something in more places, it increases its legitimacy and validity in their mind. For the same reason, it's rare that you would buy a whole new brand unless you saw it. Usually around 7 times you encountered that brand. Maybe a TV commercial, maybe you heard it on the radio, maybe you saw it on Facebook, maybe a friend talked about it, maybe you saw it in a billboard, and all of a sudden your mind is being conditioned to trust it, because the more you see it, the more your mind accepts it. But if you only see it once, then it's not just cutting it in half, it's usually more than cutting it in half. So if I was in your shoes, I would do exactly what Dan said. Don't stop your ads, but reduce the spend. And here's one tactic you can use. When you pull up your keyword report, let's just say you're bidding and your bid is $1.75 per keyword, but the actual cost per click is $1.25. Drop your bid to the actual cost per click. Then wait a few days and see if that changes your conversion at all. What might happen, maybe your sales go down a little bit, but your margins go up significantly more, and now you're actually making more money. Because at the end of the day, guys, the number one thing you're going for is not number of sales. You're going for revenue when it's profitable. In other words, actual money you make, net profit. That's why you're here. Doesn't matter how many sales you get. If it's not profitable, it's a waste of your time. One more thought I just want to add to this, Dan. I love this. Did everyone listen to what Vat said? He said something that is gold. He said, we changed the main image of one of our ASINs and our conversion went from 12 to 28%. Change the main image and the conversion more than doubled. Enough said. You guys get the point.
Yeah, on this, I would say when you do design the listing, try have split test images, try have 4 or 5 main images, because that can make such a huge difference to sales. Having, and you might love one version of the main image, but everyone else is going to convert on a different version of that. So having split test main images is huge, and great job changing the image as well. A lot of people feel like they don't want to adjust things like that, but it can see significant results like this. Yeah. Another thing, just lastly on this, to Vat's question, is you might well be ranking very well organically for a certain keyword and doing a lot of sales there. And you might also want to look at the other keywords, where the other keywords you're not organically ranking for that well. Maybe it's time to push the ad spend up there, get organically ranking there, and again, reduce bids on these ones you are organically ranking for.
Excellent. Very, very good, Dan. Thank you, man. Neil Duffy says, Seth and Dan, what does it mean if the listings are in a row horizontally rather than vertically in Amazon? Is that the listing has a lot of sellers? Neon Island. Good to see you, Neil. Very simple. So it depends on a couple things. Depends on what device you're searching it on. Second, it depends on the product category. And Amazon sometimes will tweak that. So you do have options. You have view options when you're searching, but also sometimes Amazon will change those based on tests that they're doing. I wouldn't even give it the time of day. The only question is when you search and you see everything showing up on that first page, are those high-ranking sellers over a long period of time? What do you need to do to rank on that first page so you can sell? That's the only thing I would be concerned about with that question. Tim Lee says, I'm working on the first product to post on Amazon with my business partner. What do you think about starting a business with a business partner in Amazon? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Dan, what would you say to this, man?
I would say really think about why you need a partner. That's the first thing I would say. I've watched this just in a few different areas, not just Amazon businesses, but there's massive honeymoon stages with this type of thing where it's going to be amazing. And and when it gets real, then things can fall apart quite quickly. So I would say just be vigilant on why you need a partner and write that down. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What does this partner bring to the table for you? And does that gel? If you have the same strengths and same weaknesses, that's not good. So I would, really look at that and determine, is this needed? Is it needed or is it just wanted? And that's what I would make that call on.
Really good. Really well said. And I'll add to that, consider a business partnership almost like a marriage. In other words, your relationship with that person is so important that if you don't have a relationship where you trust each other, where you're honest, if you make a mistake, you're honest about it, the majority of business partnerships fall apart, not because of money, not because of market, not because of strategy, not because of gifts, but because the relationship went sour. So just make sure you have a really strong foundation and not a codependent relationship where you're afraid to say what you really believe, but do it in a way that shows respect to the other person, and decide who is the majority partner if there is any. The disadvantage of 50-50 is unless you have a really good relationship, a lot of trust, where you agree and you can't move forward, then you might have to consider arbitration. Now you're wasting time and your business is already losing. But if you have a really good relationship, you trust this person and you respect, like Dan said, each other's strengths, then it's easier to let one person make decisions in this area, another person decisions in this area. Otherwise, you could consider like a 51-49. If you're the one starting this, then you have the majority share. So if there is a disagreement,
Seth,
sorry about that. I'm back.
I just lost you.
Yeah, I think our internet just went out for a second. But if you guys are 51-49 and you're 51, then if you do reach a stalemate, you make the final decision. And just one more thought, talk to that person up front and make sure, like Dan said, you have clear expectations. In other words, think about the worst that can happen, write it down. What's the worst that can happen? Are you okay with that? Do you have a plan for that? Realize this could fall apart. And sometimes you'll be surprised. You would never expect it to, and it could. Because when things get stressful or when there's a lot of money, sometimes people change. So think about the worst that can happen and be super upfront about everything. But if you are hesitant to be really honest because you don't want to offend them, it won't work. You have to be able to be very honest and respectful mutually. Otherwise, it really, really won't work. So really good question. And thank you, Dan, for your insights on that as well, man. Okay, next question is from Miss Ziz Ihas. Hey, Seth, thank you for your videos. Will you ever do an in-depth video about product liability? We do this for members only because it's so technical. We do talk about insurance when shipping from China. I can give you general advice. The majority of freight forwarding companies will already have an insurance option. Just make sure, let's say, doing it again, you have your Aggies cup. This is you may not know this, Dan, this is a competing college, fiercely competing with the football team in Austin. They're called A&M, the Aggies fan. And so every time I do this, I'm increasing the chances that my Austin friends and followers are going to hate me after today. But anyways, we'll make sure this is not in the thumbnail, but I'm still doing this in honor of Brett, who signed up and he sent me this and asked me to present it. Let's say you're selling this product, Mrs. Haas, and this is a product you're having shipped from Amazon. From the supplier to Amazon. And you have a freight forwarding company. Let's just pretend, for example, it's DHL. So you're going to go to them and say, look, when you fill out the application, I would like insurance. Now, let's say the actual cost of this is $1,000, not including the shipping, just the actual physical product is $1,000. If that ship sinks and goes down, you are partially responsible for recuperation of all the value on the ship. So if there's 100 people shipping, you're responsible for 1/100th of it. And that can be very expensive because if helicopters come in to save lives, you also have to pay for that. If you have insurance, it protects you from that. The insurance company covers that. Not only that, but the cost of getting these again, if they were destroyed, so you might want to say, I'm declaring a value of 1,200, not 1,000, because the cost of regaining my product is oftentimes more expensive than just the cost of the product itself. You have to go back, you lose time, you have to negotiate, maybe you have to go with a different supplier. So in other words, make sure the declared value for insurance is high enough to recuperate your loss if the ship goes down. That is different than declared value for the commercial invoice that goes on the packing. That needs to be accurate. Don't understate that or you could get in big trouble. But yeah, if you're a member, you should see in the start section, we have a lot that we cover on that topic right there. Dan, I'll give this one to you, man. Adriana says, how do we contact someone to check the product quality? And I think they're referring to product inspections.
Yes. So what I suggest is if you go onto Alibaba itself, they actually have recommended inspection services, things they can include with your order. So when you actually create the order, you can include those inspections, but they have two. I can't remember them by name, but they have two that they really recommend. And if you just Google that, Alibaba product inspections, you'll see those two come up. And what you would do is get in touch with that company, and then you select the package you would like. So they can check every single unit or every fifth unit or every third unit. They have different variants of that, and they will check that many units on details that you ask them to check. So it could be check the product for smudges, or check the product for sharp edges, or coloration of logos, things like that. They'll check all of that, give you the report, and the percentage of goods not up to scratch. Another thing to do is when you actually create your contract with that supplier, set in stone a percentage of goods which is sort of unacceptable. So, for example, if more than 25% of the goods or more than 10% of the goods are not perfect, then they'll remanufacture those before shipping. That type of thing is good to put into the trade assurance contract as well. But inspections, you can Google that. You'll see them come up, the Alibaba approved ones.
Excellent. And Adriana, if you are in the Just When I membership, go to the private Facebook group and ask that question. There's a lot of members using favorite inspection companies as well, who they trust because they just use them, that you could also leverage that resource in addition to Alibaba that Dan mentioned. Great question. Okay, the next question is from Chan. I'll take a first shot at it, Dan, then feel free to add anything you want. He says, besides differentiating a product well, I love how he began that question. Like, I wish every Amazon seller began their question with that phrase, because I still believe that is the number one most underlooked aspect of launching on Amazon for someone who's new. You must differentiate your product. If you just buy it from Alibaba, sell it on Amazon, and think you're going to make money, you will lose money. You have to differentiate. What would you say, I'm continuing the question now, the next most important step that must be taken before launching? And then he gives a list of a few things: email sequence, social media account, product inserts, bonus gift, etc. So Chan, all the things you mentioned are excellent. So I want to say good job talking about differentiation, and all these are very important. The one thing I don't see mentioned here, and that I'm going to expound on a little bit, is PPC, which we mentioned earlier. More than giveaways, and we can talk about the problem with giveaways as well if we want, but more than giveaways is PPC, because every time someone finds your product and buys it, even if your advertising cost of sales higher than your profits, at least you're still getting the money back for the cost of the sale that you got. So it's not entirely a loss. And it's really not a loss in the long term. Think back to what Dan said earlier, short-term thinking. PPC requires long-term thinking. The thinking goes like this. If I'm launching this cup, forgive me, my friends in Austin, if I'm launching this mug, this is my product, and I want as many people to see it as possible on the Amazon platform where people already are there to buy. Like, who goes on Amazon to research? Maybe a tiny percent. By far the majority of people are in a buying mode. So the chance of conversion is high if my product meets their need. So if I'm launching on Amazon and I just launch, but I don't run PPC, how are people going to find this? It's very difficult. But if I run PPC, this is an almost guaranteed way to get it in front of their eyes. And for the next 10 days, I can observe and watch and see out of 100 people who see it in a few hours, how many actually buy it. And if I know that, it tells me whether or not I need to change my listing. As Vat said earlier, when he changed his main image and his conversion more than doubled. So PPC allows people to see my product, but not just that. It also allows me to optimize the listing itself to increase conversion. So if you want a very simple general rule of thumb, if you have a long tail keyword like Aggie's red and white coffee mug, that's really long, you would drop that in as a broad match. If you have a really short tail keyword like Aggie's mug, you put that in as exact match. And if you have something in between, let's just say Aggie's red mug, then in that case, you might put it in as a phrase match. Understand the concept first, guys. You can apply it anywhere. It's like, I want to give you the tool so you can go do this right now today. The longer the word, and I'm assuming it's highly relevant. That's an assumption. If it's not relevant, you're wasting your money and time. The longer the word, the broader the match. The more short the word, the more exact match. And the reason for that is if I have a really long tail keyword and people search this broad, it's super unlikely that they're going to search something irrelevant to this, because there's so many relevant keywords in it, and something different come up, and it's an irrelevant click, and I waste money. The other advantage is it's going to show me other long tail keyword variations off of this one that I might want to spend more money on to rank more, that I didn't know about those keywords. The reason you want your short tail keyword to be exact match is because exact match actually costs more, the actual cost per click. Additionally, if I put in red mug as long tail, there are going to be people clicking and searching and finding all sorts of irrelevant stuff. They're searching for something completely different. Like maybe it was a red tea mug, or maybe it was a red mug, a face mug. You see what I mean? There's a red cup could come up, all these different variations. And if they click on my ad, they're not going to buy because it's super irrelevant. Now, you're not going to keep it that way. Over time, when you start to find the keywords that make you a lot of money, those are the ones you later put in as exact match, and you really sniper, you focus on that keyword and optimize the listing based on that. But when you launch, that's the strategy I would give you. Dan, is there anything that you wanted to include on this at all?
No, this is good. I think the other things I would touch on, product inserts. You know, if you're doing the product insert, say with a lead magnet, you're offering maybe more value. You do have to start thinking about, okay, where does that product insert direct someone to? And if it's a landing page, then you need to design that landing page as well. So that's something you need to consider, is how does that structure work from product insert to landing page? And then what do you give them? Are you doing ebooks? Are you doing guides, etc.? What is that additional value that you're building in? And that can take a bit of time. So that's something you can work on as well.
Excellent, man. Okay, guys, we're just going to take a couple more questions and we're going to wrap this up. Let me just say this really quick. Dan Rogers has been with Just One Dime for, man, it's been a while now, like since 2016, early 2017. It's been a while. First as a student, now as a coach, now as a core coach. So he coaches coaches of coaches, and he has helped provide a ton of training material in the 5 courses in the Amazon FBA Mastery membership with Just One Dime. And he's also someone I trust and someone who has just proven himself. And I can tell you, he's an entrepreneur. He's extremely successful on Amazon. He's always growing, always learning, always coming up with new things that he's testing. He's a tester. He loves to test stuff. And so you guys are getting like cream of the crop today with the advice that you're getting. So I just want to say thank you, Dan, for being here. And if you guys haven't, make sure you click below. There's 2 things I want you guys to think about. Number 1, follow Dan on his YouTube channel. I included the link below. You're going to get a lot of value out of that. He comes out with videos on there. Second, they're very in-depth and specific. Second, if you haven't yet and you are looking, you're saying, Seth, Dan, I need no BS, to the point, super helpful training that shows me how to build a legitimate, scalable, sustainable business on Amazon, taught by people who aren't primarily marketers, but doers, people who are selling on Amazon and teaching what they're learning. And not just one person, but a multiple number of people in different categories. Some of these multi-million-dollar sellers like myself. If that's what you're looking for, Just One Dime can and will deliver that, with one caveat. You have to be willing to put in the work. It is not rocket science, but you have to be willing to put in the work. Even if you guys just give it 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, go at your own pace. Become a member of Just One Dime's Amazon FBA Mastery. We will do everything we can to help you crush it on Amazon. But that requires the willingness to say, Seth, Dan, I am willing to do what it takes to get there. I don't know if you saw this post it was like 3 days ago, Dan, but within our group, someone just posted, they did over 100,000. Okay, let me stop. They started with Just One Dime in December. They had no previous launching experience before. In the last 30 days, they have generated over $100,000 at over 30% profit margin. That means they're taking home $30,000. Like, what company is going to pay you $30,000 a month? And everything they learned on launching was from Just One Dime. They started in December. And here's the crazy part. They're not even selling in the US where there's most demand. They're selling in India. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll see his screenshot very soon. I think it's scheduled to come out like in 2 days or something. And I'm actually interested in interviewing him. Those are the results of Just One Dime coaches, because we're not like, oh, here's a course, let me show you all these marketing things to make sure you buy it. No, we actually want to show you how to build a business that works for you so that you actually have margin. This is why I started. I wanted to have margin so I could take my wife on dates and not worry about the cost, travel the world, go to London, go to China, go to Seattle when it's hot here in Austin, like to have that freedom to invest in people. That's freedom, you guys. And I hope whatever you're doing, that you find that. And I really hope that Amazon is a means to an end so you can create margin for you and those you love. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know if you want to add anything to Dan, but go ahead.
Well, thank you, Seth. That's very, very kind words. I've enjoyed working with you guys so much the past couple of years. And I would love to see some more members join up and join our community. I think you guys will be super pleased with what you find, especially the community, very, very positive. And I think, what you said should be reiterated. I think that's so important. Our group of coaches, the leadership at Just One Dime, is selling on Amazon. They're building their own businesses. And as a lot of you will figure out as you do this, there's a lot of anomalies. There's a lot of divergence from theory, do the process like this. Well, there's a lot of like caveats. There's a lot of different things you actually need to do and you pick up only through experience. So I think that's going to, I think that stands us apart from some programs. That's why I enjoy working with you guys so much. And I hope that the members see that value in that as well.
Absolutely, man. Okay, we're going to just do one more question. I love this question, Dan, because it is such a hot question right now, apart from tariffs. This isn't about building a wall today. So I was really nervous when they released that thumbnail of me like this with the blonde hair. I was like, look, I'm not mocking anyone. We're just having fun with it.
Yeah, I saw that.
President Trump is a very entertaining person. Can I put it that way? Okay. Rich says this, huge new mistake that a lot are making. And thank you, Rich, for sharing this. Doing giveaways, then sending out thank you emails for review and accounts getting suspended. This is happening a lot across the board. So let me just share a couple things. Amazon has a giveaway page. It is safe to use. Use their giveaway. Dan has a full-on video teaching you exactly how to do that within Just One Dime. I don't share that publicly. The best stuff our members get. Second, if you're doing an Amazon giveaway, a giveaway not on Amazon's page, the effectiveness of it has dropped significantly. That is why some companies whose entire their entire business model was built on giveaways, they quickly had to change it to something else. Otherwise, the company would die. And that's why Amazon is not easy, because it changes a lot. That's why, again, going back to what Dan said, we are all Amazon sellers in different product categories, because what you're going to find in home and kitchen is not the same as in handmade. In fact, this is so interesting to me. We have a handmade student. She just posted on Instagram. It was an insane number she's done. I can't even remember. And someone said, why would I join a membership when they don't specifically teach handmade? Well, wait a minute. When you have a plethora of people selling different categories, you're going to get the information and training you need. But if you do, you are on Amazon's watch list. They're watching you. Okay, it's like pretty much like saying, hey, Amazon, look at me. And then if you send out emails asking for reviews, it's like, bye-bye, Amazon. Like, I don't even know if the best lawyers in the world can get you back. So whatever you do, don't try to take a shortcut. Remember at the beginning of this, Dan talked about short-term thinking, incentivize reviews. Hey, if you give me a review, I'll reimburse you. Guess what, guys? As soon as even a reviewer's account is compromised, not the buyer, I'm not the seller, but the reviewer, the buyer, if they leave a review on your product, it puts your listing at risk for being not only having the reviews removed, but no longer being able to receive any reviews. And it's kind of hard to make money on a listing that has no reviews. So you don't want to do that. So what do you have to do? You have to create a whole new listing and start all over again. Dan had to do this.
Yeah.
Not to any fault of Dan, but that's an example, you guys. Dan's sharing with you out of his own pain. Like, he's teaching you something he learned so you don't have to make the same mistake, and it will cost you so much money. Back to you, man.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that. If you create the new, here's where the problem comes in, because you create the new listing, but remember, each product has a FNSKU on it. So now that FNSKU has to change. So all the inventory has to come out and go back in with a new FNSKU
Right.
for the new listing. So yeah, that can be a major issue. On giveaways, I think on this large scale giveaways, which mustn't be confused with Amazon giveaways. Amazon giveaways are fine. It's the large scale giveaways which are a bit of an issue. But I would say rather go with the PPC, go the PPC route on this, like Seth was talking about earlier, for multiple reasons. One of which is if you do the large scale giveaways, yes, your BSR will drop, but they've shown that it will drop for a short period of time because it's based on recency of sales. So if you get a whole lot of sales here, your BSR will drop, but it's going to go way back up when your sales, you don't keep selling 50 a day.
Right.
So that's why PPC, in my opinion, it's better to spend your money on PPC because that way you're building long-term ranking. But
Totally.
it comes back to just have a long-term mindset and build up slowly.
Yep, absolutely. My dream is someday so many of you guys can celebrate with us on the beaches somewhere on an island, having made a ton of money, and now it gives you margin not just to make money on Amazon, but maybe you want to do a hobby. Maybe you want to launch something through a crowdfunding like Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Maybe you want to give back to a country, help someone in need. There's so many things you can do, guys, if you have money and you use it as a tool, not as a God that controls you, and not to be scared of it, but literally as a tool to give you margin. So thank you so much, Dan, for being here today. Guys, my hope and prayer is that today you found two things: inspiration to keep going, and number two, specific things you can do to build your Amazon business so that you have margin to do the things you love with the people you love. Oh, and by the way, I updated the link below, guys. It should work. Try it. Try both links and make sure they work. Thanks again, Dan.
My pleasure, Seth. Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone else who's watching.
All right. See you guys. Take care. Bye.